You're sitting in a room full of people. Maybe it's a dinner party. Maybe it's a Monday morning meeting. The air is filled with that polite, low-hum frequency of social lubrication. People are laughing at jokes that aren't funny. They're nodding at statements they don't actually agree with. They are performing. And for them, the performance is reality. They are happy in the simulation. But then there's you. You're sitting there, and you feel a distinct, physical separation from the rest of the species. It's not because you're shy. It's not because you're socially awkward. It's because you see the strings. You look at the person holding court in the center of the room, the one everyone else thinks is so charming, so charismatic, and you don't see charm. You see a predator testing the fences. You see the calculated pause before they deliver the punchline, designed specifically to manufacture consensus. You see the way their eyes dart around the circle, cataloging who is submissive and who is a threat. Everyone else sees a nice guy. You see a transaction. And this is the first uncomfortable truth about possessing high-level, Machiavellian intelligence. It doesn't feel like a superpower. It feels like a curse. It feels like being the only sober person in a car full of drunks who insist they're fine to drive. This is the burden of the first trait, penetrating insight. Most people move through life operating on the ought. The world ought to be fair. People ought to be honest. Your boss ought to care about your career development. Because they cling to the ought, they are constantly blindsided when reality hits them. But you operate in what Niccolò Machiavelli called the verità effettuale, the effectual truth. The thing as it actually is, not as we wish it to be. Let's look at a specific moment you've lived 1,000 times. You're in a conversation with someone new. They are oversharing. They are telling you about their trauma, their hardships, their deepest fears. Within 20 minutes of meeting you, to the average person, this looks like vulnerability. They think, wow, this person is so open. We have such a connection. They lean in. They reciprocate. They hand over their own ammunition. But you don't lean in. You pull back. Because your pattern recognition, that relentless, hyperactive engine in your brain, is screaming at you. You know that instant intimacy isn't connection, it's boundary testing. You know that someone who dumps their emotional baggage at your feet on the first date isn't looking for a partner. They are looking for a caretaker or a hostage. You see the hook hidden in the bait. So you stay silent. You watch. You observe. And here is where the pain sets in. Because you see the reality, you can't participate in the fantasy. You can't fake the laugh. You can't offer the false reassurance. And people sense that deviation. They sense that you aren't playing along. This is why they call you intense. This is why they ask you, why are you analyzing everything? Can't you just have fun? They try to pathologize your intelligence. They try to convince you that your vision is a defect. They want you to close your eyes and go back to sleep because your wakefulness makes them nervous. When you don't buy the liar gets scared. And when the liar gets scared, they turn the group against you. Think about the last time you tried to warn a friend about a toxic partner. You didn't use vague terms. You pointed out the specific mechanism. You said, he isolates you from your family by making you feel guilty for spending time with them. You laid out the cause and effect. And what happened? Did they thank you? No. They attacked you. They called you jealous. They called you cynical. They shot the messenger because the message was too bright to look at. This is the isolation of the smart. You are walking around with an X-ray vision that you cannot turn off. You see the skeleton beneath the skin. You see the insecurity driving, the arrogance. You see the envy disguised as a compliment. You see the power dynamic in every single interaction. Machiavelli didn't write The Prince for the people who want to be liked. He wrote it for the people who need to survive reality. And if you have this trait, this inability to be deceived by the surface level of human behavior, you are already halfway to the throne. But only halfway, because right now, you are probably just suffering from it. You are letting this insight drain your energy. You are letting the stupidity of others irritate you, frustrate you, and isolate you. You are looking at the sheep and hating them for being sheep, instead of realizing that your nature is different. You are treating your intelligence as a social failure. You think, if I could just turn my brain off, I'd be happier. You think, if I could just be like them, I wouldn't feel this lonely. Stop. That desire to regress, that is your weakness talking. That is you trying to crawl back into the womb of ignorance. The discomfort you feel isn't a sign that you're broken. It's a sign that your operating system is running on a higher frequency than the network around you. The problem isn't that you see the strings. The problem is that you haven't learned what to do with that information yet. You are standing on the sidelines, paralyzed by your own sight. You see the game, but you aren't playing it. You're just letting it happen to you. And that brings us to the silence. The way you handle what you see. Because the smartest people in the room aren't the ones making the most noise. They are the ones who understand the massive, leverageable power of withholding. Most people are terrified of the void. You know exactly what I'm talking about. You're in a conversation, and a natural pause happens. Maybe the topic died. Maybe someone asked a difficult question. For the average person, that 2 seconds of silence feels like a physical assault. Their anxiety spikes. Their brain screams, say something, anything, fix the gap. So they babble. They make a joke. They repeat themselves. They offer up information they didn't intend to share, just to plug the hole in the air. They treat silence as a social error that must be corrected. But you treat silence as a weapon. This is the second trait, strategic silence. And it is the one that unnerves people the most. Let's go back to that meeting room, or maybe a negotiation table. Someone throws a lowball offer at you, or perhaps a passive-aggressive insult disguised as feedback. The standard human reaction is to defend immediately, to jump in and say, well, actually, that's not fair because, or I think you misunderstood. The standard reaction is to engage with the premise they set. But you don't do that. You engage in what the masters call the uncomfortable pause. You look at them. You don't frown. You don't smile. You just maintain eye contact for 4 seconds longer than is socially comfortable. You let their words hang in the air, exposed, without catching them. And in that vacuum, you watch them crumble. Because you didn't validate their statement with a response, they start to doubt it. They start to backpedal. I mean, not that it's bad, it's just, I'm just playing devil's advocate. Obviously, we can work something out. They start negotiating against themselves. They start filling the silence with concessions. All because you refuse to perform the expected role of the responsive listener. You realize that in any interaction, the person who speaks the most is usually the one with the least power. The person talking is the person revealing. They are showing their cards, their anxieties, their need for approval. The person listening, the person watching, they are a black box. You have learned that information is the currency of warfare, and you are a vault. You know that every time you open your mouth, you are giving the world a hook to catch you on. Machiavelli warned that a prince must be a great pretender and dissembler. But to dissemble, you must first control the flow of information. You must be comfortable with being a mystery. Think about how this plays out in your relationships. You're dating someone, or maybe dealing with a difficult family member. They try to bait you into an argument. They push your buttons. They want the explosion because the explosion is predictable. The explosion tells them they still have control over your emotional state. But you deny them the reaction. You sit there, calm, unbothered. You don't offer them the fuel of your anger. And this drives them absolutely insane. They scream, "Why aren't you saying anything?" They accuse you of being cold. They accuse you of not caring. But it's not that you don't care. It's that you refuse to be a puppet. You refuse to let someone else pull a string and watch you dance. You have realized that the ultimate power move is not to win the shouting match. It is to decline the invitation to shout. But there is a dark side to this trait, isn't there? Because you are comfortable in the silence, people project their own insecurities onto you. Because you don't fill the air with, "I'm fine, you're fine, we're all fine" chatter, people assume you are judging them. And the truth is, you often are. You are judging their lack of discipline. You are judging their inability to sit with themselves. You are judging the way they leak their power like a dripping faucet. This creates a distance. You walk through the world feeling like you are behind a pane of glass. You see them. They can't quite see you. They see a reflection of themselves in your silence. And usually, they don't like what they see. So they blame the mirror. They blame you. They call you arrogant. He thinks he's better than everyone. They call you detached. She's impossible to read. Let them. Let them misunderstand you. Because while they are busy trying to figure you out, you are busy figuring out the terrain. While they are exhausting themselves performing for the crowd, you are conserving your energy. You understand a fundamental law of physics that applies to psychology. The object with the most mass draws everything else into its orbit. Silence creates mass. Noise creates friction. By staying quiet, you become the gravity in the room. You force people to come to you. You force them to work for your approval rather than you working for theirs. But this level of control comes with a heavy price tag. It requires you to suppress your own ego. Because part of you wants to correct them. Part of you wants to show off how smart you are. Part of you wants to scream, "I know exactly what you're doing." But you don't. You swallow the urge. You kill the ego to feed the strategy. And that requires a level of radical realism that most people cannot stomach. You have to accept that you will be villainized for your silence. Because in a world of noise, quiet is a threat. You are often accused of being negative. You hear it from your spouse, your colleagues, your parents. Why do you always have to look at the dark side? Why can't you just be optimistic for once? You're such a cynic. And every time you hear this, you feel a spike of genuine confusion. Because in your mind, you aren't being negative. You aren't being cynical. You are simply describing the object that is sitting on the table. If there is a fire in the kitchen and you say, "The kitchen is on fire," that is not negativity. That is observation. But to the people sitting in the living room, pretending the smoke isn't there, you are the buzzkill. You are the one ruining the vibe. This brings us to the third trait, and it is the one that causes the most damage to your personal life: radical realism. Let's look at exactly how this destroys your relationships with average people. Your friend starts a new business. It is a multi-level marketing scheme, or a crypto coin with no utility, or a restaurant in a location that has killed 5 other restaurants in 3 years. They are excited. They are high on the dopamine of a new dream. They come to you for validation. They want you to say, "That's amazing. You're going to be rich." But you don't say that. You have run the numbers in your head. You see the market saturation. You see the flaw in the business model. You see the cliff they are driving toward at 90 miles an hour. So, because you respect them, you tell them the truth. You say, "Have you considered that the margins are too thin?" You say, "This model relies on recruiting, not selling. You think you are saving them. You think you are being a good friend by preventing them from driving off the cliff. But they don't see a savior. They see a hater. They withdraw. They get defensive. They stop telling you things. And 6 months later, when the business fails exactly how you predicted it would, they don't come back and say, "You were right." They hate you more. Why? Because you witnessed their foolishness. You are the living record of their failure. Your very existence reminds them that they were wrong and you were right. And human ego cannot survive that proximity. Here is the gut punch realization you need to accept. Most people value comfort over truth. Machiavelli wrote about this extensively. He understood that the masses are driven by appearances, not reality. He said, "Everyone sees what you appear to be. Few experience what you really are." Most people are happy with the appearance. They want the pretty lie. They want to be told that their relationship is healthy, that their job is secure, that the politician cares about them. But you have a physiological inability to swallow the lie. It tastes like ash in your mouth. When the boss gives the "we're a family" speech while cutting benefits, you physically recoil. You look around the room and see everyone else nodding, and you feel like you are going insane. Does nobody else see this? You scream internally. Yes, they see it. But they are pretending they don't, because pretending is safer. Your intelligence has stripped you of the ability to pretend. And that is why you feel so alone. You are living in the high-definition, unedited footage of reality, while everyone else is watching the Disney version. This creates a terrible binary choice in your social life. Option A: you speak your truth, and you are labeled toxic, difficult, or cold. Option B: you suppress your truth, you nod along, and you slowly die inside from the cognitive dissonance. You have probably tried option B. You tried to play nice. You tried to just smile and say, "Good for you," when you knew it was a disaster. But you're bad at it. The mask slips. Your eyes roll. The sarcasm leaks out. You can't help it. And here is the hardest part of this realization. You think your realism is a gift to the world. You think you are the lighthouse warning the ships about the rocks. But the ships don't want to be warned. They want to crash. The crash is part of their emotional cycle. By trying to stop them, you aren't being a hero. You are interrupting their drama. You are the person who turns on the lights at the party at 3 a.m. Yes, the party is over. Yes, everyone looks terrible. Yes, there is vomit on the floor. You are technically correct that it is time to go home. But nobody likes the guy who turns on the lights. So, where does that leave you? It leaves you with the painful understanding that your clarity is a liability until you learn to control who you share it with. You are casting pearls before swine, and then getting angry when the swine don't appreciate the jewelry. You are trying to debate logic with people who are operating on emotion. You are playing chess. They are playing hungry, hungry hippos. And you are losing, not because you aren't smart, but because you are trying to enforce rules on a game that doesn't have any. You have to stop expecting people to thank you for popping their balloons. You have to realize that for the majority of the population, delusion is a survival strategy. And when you attack their delusion, you are attacking their survival. You were raised on a lie. From the time you were 5 years old, sitting in a classroom, you were told that the rules apply to everyone. You were told that if you work hard, tell the truth, and follow the instructions, you will be rewarded. You were told that the smart kid is the one who raises their hand and gives the correct answer. So you spent your life gathering correct answers. You spent your life trying to be right. And now you are confused. You are confused because you look around your office or your industry and you see people who are objectively stupider than you. objectively lazier than you, and objectively less competent than you, climbing the ladder while you stay on the same rung. You look at the guy who got the promotion. He doesn't know the technical details. He makes mistakes, but he knows how to laugh at the boss's terrible jokes. He knows how to take credit for the team's work without looking like he's taking credit. And you think, it's not fair. Stop using that word. Fair is a concept for children. Fair is a concept for the playground. You are not on the playground. You are in the forest. This brings us to the psychological foundation of your entire existence. The framework that explains why your raw intelligence isn't translating into success. Niccolò Machiavelli laid it out over 500 years ago in chapter 18 of The Prince. He introduced two archetypes, the lion and the fox. The lion is ferocious. The lion has raw power. The lion can frighten the wolves. Most people try to be the lion. They try to win by being louder, by being aggressive, or by being right, with brute force logic. When they are challenged, they roar. But Machiavelli warned, the lion cannot defend himself against snares. The lion is easy to trap. You dig a hole, you cover it with leaves, and the lion, full of pride and aggression, walks right into it. You have been trying to be a lion of logic. When someone lies, you roar with the truth. When someone plays a game, you roar with indignation. And you keep walking into traps. You keep getting outmaneuvered by people who have a fraction of your IQ, but double your EQ. This is where the fourth trait comes in. You are naturally a fox, but you are ashamed of it. The fox is defenseless against the wolves physically, but the fox knows how to recognize snares. The fox doesn't roar. The fox goes around. The fox understands that sometimes, to get from point A to point B, you cannot walk in a straight line. You have to zigzag. You have to backtrack. You have to pretend to be asleep. Your penetrating insight, your strategic silence, your radical realism. These are the traits of the fox. These are the traits of someone who sees the trap. But society has gaslit you into thinking these traits are bad. Society tells you, just be yourself. A trap. Society tells you, honesty is the best policy. A trap, unless the other person is also honest. Society tells you, vulnerability is strength. A fatal trap if you are dealing with a narcissist. Because you are smarter than most people, you instinctively know these are traps. You feel the danger in your gut. But because you want to be a good person, you override your instinct. You walk into the trap anyway because you don't want to be seen as cynical. You are a fox trying to wear a lion costume, and it is suffocating you. The psychological shift you need to make, the one that separates the truly powerful from the merely smart, is to stop apologizing for your nature. You need to understand that strategy is not a sin. You need to understand that withholding the truth from someone who will weaponize it against you is not lying. It is armor. Think about the smartest person you know who is actually successful. Not just rich, but in control. Do they scream? Do they get into Twitter fights? Do they correct people publicly? No. They smile. They nod. They say, that's an interesting perspective. And then they go do exactly what they intended to do, while the other person feels heard and validated. That is the fox. That is the application of Machiavellian intelligence. It is the realization that being right is a vanity metric. Being effective is the only thing that matters. Your brain is wired for efficiency. You see the fastest path. But you get frustrated when you have to deal with the messy, irrational, emotional roadblocks of other human beings. You try to ram through them, lion. The fox knows you cannot ram through human nature. You have to massage it. You have to seduce it. You have to trick it. This is the uncomfortable truth. You are suffering because you treat human interactions like math problems, where 2 plus 2 always equals 4. But humans are not math. Humans are chemistry. And sometimes, if you add the wrong element, the whole thing explodes in your face. You have the capacity to be the fox. You have the sight. You have the silence. But you lack the permission. You are waiting for someone to tell you it's okay to not be transparent. You are waiting for someone to tell you it's okay to manipulate the outcome for the greater good. Consider this your permission. The world is full of traps set by people who want to use you, drain you, or climb over you. Your intelligence is the only thing that allows you to see the wires. If you refuse to use your eyes because you want to be nice, you don't deserve the crown. You deserve the cage. Here is the cruelest irony of your existence. You possess this high-level processing power. You have the insight of the fox. You have the radar of the realist. By all logic, you should be immune to manipulation. You should be the hardest person in the room to fool. But you aren't. In fact, you are often the easiest target. And this brings us to the fourth trait, skepticism, or rather, the perversion of it. Because you are smart, you understand nuance. You understand that nothing is black and white. You understand that people are complex, that trauma shapes behavior, that there are two sides to every story. And the predators of this world absolutely love that about you. Let's watch how this happens in real time. You meet someone, maybe a romantic interest, maybe a new best friend. Early on, they do something that triggers your alarm system. A small lie, a subtle put down, a flash of aggression that disappears as quickly as it came. Your gut, that ancient lizard brain survival mechanism, screams, danger. Your gut says, run. But then your brain kicks in. Your big, beautiful, complex brain. And instead of running, you start thinking. Maybe they didn't mean it that way. Maybe they had a rough childhood. Maybe I'm just being paranoid because of my ex. I shouldn't judge them so quickly. That wouldn't be fair. Do you see what you just did? You used your own intelligence to gaslight yourself. You used your capacity for empathy and nuance to build a defense case for the person who is hunting you. A stupid person sees a red flag and says, red flag. Bad. But they don't overthink it. They don't have the mental capacity to rationalize the behavior, so they just react to it. But you are a mental gymnast. You can construct a 12-story skyscraper of logic to explain away a simple act of disrespect. This is why high IQ people stay in toxic relationships longer than anyone else. Because you think you can solve the person. You treat their dysfunction like a puzzle. You think if you just find the right combination of words, the right level of patience, the right strategy, you can fix them. You treat the relationship like a project that you are failing at, rather than a burning building you need to exit. You fall for it because of the Dunning-Kruger effect, but in reverse. Stupid people are overflowing with unearned confidence. They are wrong, but they are loud about it. You are plagued by what is called intellectual humility. You know how much you don't know. You know that you could be wrong. You are painfully aware of your own biases. So when a narcissist looks you in the eye with absolute, unwavering certainty and says, that never happened, you're crazy, you wobble. You think, well, they seem so sure. And I know my memory isn't perfect. Maybe I am overreacting. Their confidence overrides your competence. Their certainty overrides your reality. Society has weaponized your skepticism against you. You have been trained that it is arrogant to trust your own judgment over the group's consensus. You have been trained that nice people give the benefit of the doubt. So you give the benefit of the doubt. Again, and again, and again. You hand out second chances like they are candy, not realizing that you are feeding a monster that will eventually eat you. You are vulnerable because you assume other people operate on your software. You value truth, so you assume they value truth. You value reason, so you assume they are open to reason. You project your own morality onto people who have none. You are playing a game of bridge. You are following the rules. You are counting cards. Meanwhile, they are lighting the table on fire and stealing your wallet. And you are sitting there thinking, technically, lighting the table on fire is against the rules, while they are already halfway down the street with your cash. This is the shadow truth you don't want to admit. You doubt yourself because you are afraid of being alone. If you actually listened to your skepticism, if you actually trusted that cold, dark voice in your head that spots the liars instantly, you would have to cut off 80% of the people in your life. You would have to walk away from the dinner party. You would have to dump the partner. You would have to quit the job. And that is terrifying. So you compromise. You turn down the volume on your intuition. You tell yourself you are managing the relationship, but you aren't managing anything. You are being digested. You are the smartest person in the room, yet you are the one questioning your own sanity. Why? Because you haven't learned the most important lesson of the fox. The trap doesn't care if you understand how it works. It only cares if you step in it. Analyzing the poison doesn't stop it from killing you. You have to stop drinking it. Let's talk about the specific mechanism that makes you dangerous to average people. It is the fifth trait, emotional detachment. But we need to be very clear about what this is. It isn't psychopathy. It isn't that you don't feel things. In fact, because of your high perception, you probably feel things more intensely than others. You feel the insult deeper. You feel the betrayal sharper. But unlike the masses, you have installed what I call the emotional firewall. Here is the scenario. It's 10 p.m. on a Tuesday. You get an email from a coworker or a text from a family member. It is passive-aggressive. It is accusing. It is designed specifically to get under your skin. The average person reads that text, and their cortisol spikes. Their heart rate jumps. They immediately start typing. Type. Delete. Type harder. All caps. Send. They have just lost the game. They reacted within the red zone. That window of time where emotion overrides logic. They have handed control of their evening, their sleep, and their reputation over to the person who sent the text. But you read the text. You feel the spike. You feel the urge to destroy them with words. But you don't type. You put the phone down. You turn the screen over. You go make a cup of tea. You go to sleep. You wait. This is the gap. The sacred space between stimulus and response. Viktor Frankl wrote about it, but Machiavelli lived it. You understand that an emotion is just a chemical weather system passing through your body. It is not a command. It is a suggestion. And usually, it is a bad suggestion. By waiting 24 hours, you transform from a victim into a strategist. When you finally reply the next morning, your message is short, cold, and surgically precise. It contains no defensive language. It contains no anger. It simply states facts. And because it is devoid of emotion, the other person cannot latch onto it. They wanted a fight. You gave them a wall. This ability to decouple your feelings from your actions is the ultimate superpower in a world addicted to outrage. Look at social media. Look at the news. The entire economy is built on harvesting immediate emotional reactions. Clickbait, rage bait, fear-mongering. The world is a giant slot machine trying to pull your lever to get a reaction. And you are the machine that says, out of order. But here is the dark side of the firewall. People hate you for it. When your partner is screaming, trying to get a reaction out of you, and you sit there calmly saying, I understand you're upset, but shouting won't solve this. They don't feel heard. They feel mocked. They scream, you're a robot. You have no feelings. They are projecting their own lack of control onto you. To a chaotic person, calm looks like arrogance. To an emotional person, logic looks like cruelty. They want you to get down in the mud with them. They want the drama because the drama validates their chaotic internal state. If you are screaming too, then their screaming is justified. But if you stay clean, if you stay calm, you become a mirror reflecting their madness back at them, and they will never forgive you for that. This trait allows you to navigate crises that paralyze others. Remember that time at work when everything went wrong? The client walked. The server crashed. The deadline was missed. Everyone else was running around like headless chickens. Panic. Blame. Hysteria. What are we going to do? We're doomed. And there you were. Still, you were already 3 steps ahead. You weren't worrying about whose fault it was. You were looking at the remaining assets. You were calculating the recovery path. You stepped in and gave orders. You do X. You do Y. I will handle Z. And everyone listened. Why? Because in a storm, the only person who gets to lead is the one who isn't seasick. Machiavelli said that fortune is a woman who must be beaten and coerced. What he meant was that you cannot let the chaos of the world dictate your state. You must impose your will upon the chaos. The emotional firewall is how you do that. It is the refusal to be a leaf in the wind. But you have to accept the cost. You will be called cold. You will be called aloof. You might even start to wonder if something is wrong with you. Why didn't I cry when everyone else was crying? Why didn't I panic when everyone else was panicking? Nothing is wrong with you. You have simply graduated from the animalistic stimulus response loop. You have moved from the passenger seat to the driver's seat. Most people are driving their lives with their eyes closed, stepping on the gas whenever they feel an emotion. You are watching the road. The next time someone tries to bait you, and they will, because your calm is offensive to them, remember the power of the gap. Let the silence stretch. Let them wonder what you are thinking. Let them stew in their own juices while you decide, with absolute, frigid calculation, whether they are even worth a response. You are not a robot. You are a vault. And vaults do not open just because someone knocks. Just be yourself. This is the most dangerous advice ever given to a human being. It is printed on coffee mugs. It is whispered by guidance counselors. It is the mantra of the modern age. And it is a trap designed to get you killed. If you walked into a wolf den and decided to just be yourself, a soft, fleshy, delicious human, you would be eaten. If you want to survive the den, you must smell like a wolf. You must move like a wolf. You must growl like a wolf. This brings us to the 6th trait, the chameleon. To the average person, changing your personality to fit the room feels like lying. They call it being two-faced. They pride themselves on being real, which usually just means they lack the emotional intelligence to read the room. They walk into a funeral and tell loud jokes because that's just who I am. They walk into a boardroom and cry because I'm owning my truth. And they get slaughtered. But you are fluid. You understand that social interaction is not about broadcasting your internal state. It is about achieving an outcome. And to achieve the outcome, you must speak the language of the natives. Think about how you operate at work. When you talk to the aggressive, Type A sales director, you shift your posture. You speak in bullet points. You make strong eye contact. You become a shark. 10 minutes later, you talk to the anxious, detail-oriented accountant. You soften your voice. You slow down. You use words like safety and precision. You become a turtle. 10 minutes after that, you're joking with the janitor about the football game. You become a regular guy? Are you lying to these people? No. You are translating. You are encoding your message into a format that their specific hardware can process. Machiavelli was obsessed with this. He wrote that a prince must be able to change his nature with the times. If you do not change with the times, you will be ruined. He understood that rigidity is death. The oak tree refuses to bend, so it snaps in the storm. The reed bends flat against the ground, and when the wind stops, it stands up again. You are the reed. But this trait comes with a heavy internal cost. Because you are so good at wearing masks, you sometimes forget what your face looks like. You get home at the end of the day, you take off the employee mask, the partner mask, the friend mask, and you look in the mirror and think, who the hell am I? You feel like a fraud. You feel like a sociopath. You think, if these people knew what I was really thinking, they would hate me. And you're right. They probably would. But that doesn't mean you're bad. It means you are protected. Here is the truth about the chameleon that nobody tells you. The mask is not there to trick others. The mask is there to protect the pearl. Deep inside you, there is a core of values, dreams, and vulnerabilities that is precious. It is the real you. And because it is precious, it must be guarded. You do not give root access to your soul to a stranger you just met at a networking event. You do not hand the keys to your heart to a boss who would fire you to save a nickel. The average person hands those keys over immediately. They vomit their authenticity all over everyone, and then they wonder why they get hurt. They wonder why their secrets are used against them. You don't have that problem. People think they know you. They think they are your friend, but they only know the avatar you created for them. And if they attack the avatar, it doesn't hurt, because it's not you. You have built a user interface for the world. When you click on an icon on your computer, you aren't touching the microchip. You are touching the interface. The interface makes the machine useful. You are the machine. Your personality is the interface. So stop feeling guilty for your adaptability. Stop feeling like you need to confess your true self to people who haven't earned it. The ability to shapeshift is a sign of high intelligence. It means you can run multiple simulations. It means you can empathize with different types of minds. But remember the rule of the chameleon. You change your color to match the environment, but you never change your species. You can act like a fool to disarm a fool. You can act like a believer to survive among zealots. But inside, you remain cold. You remain watchful. You remain the fox. Never confuse the role you are playing with the person you are. The moment you start believing your own con, you are dead. There is a specific addiction that keeps smart people poor, lonely, and powerless. It is the addiction to being right. You know the feeling. You are in a meeting or a relationship dispute, and someone says something factually incorrect. A fire ignites in your belly. Your brain pulls up the data, the dates, the citations. You have the ammunition to destroy their argument completely. And for 99% of people, that urge is irresistible. They fire the weapon. They correct the error. They prove their intellectual dominance. And they lose the war. This brings us to the seventh trait, calculated action. Or as I call it, the chess player. The average person thinks winning means winning every single exchange. If you insult them, they must insult you back. If you challenge them, they must defeat you immediately. They protect every single pawn on the board as if it were the king. But you are playing a different game. You understand that sometimes you have to lose a pawn to take a castle. You understand that sometimes You have to let the other person think they won. Let's look at a concrete scenario. Your boss is an idiot. He proposes a project plan that is doomed to fail. The smart person, the lion, speaks up immediately. That won't work because X, Y, and Z. The boss feels humiliated in front of the team. He digs in. He pushes the plan anyway, just to spite the smart person. And now the smart person is on the shit list. Now, let's look at you, the chess player. You see the flaw. You know it will fail. But you also know the boss's ego is fragile. So you stay silent. You nod. You say, "That's an ambitious vision." You let him launch the Titanic. But, and this is the key, you quietly position yourself near the lifeboats. You document your work. You prepare the solution for after the crash. 3 months later, the project implodes. The boss is panicking. He doesn't hate you because you didn't publicly correct him. You aren't his enemy. You walk in and say, "Hey, I did some digging, and I think I found a way to fix this." You present the solution you had ready on day one. He accepts it. He relies on you. You get the promotion. You get the power. Did you lose the meeting 3 months ago? Yes. Did you win the war? Absolutely. This is the discipline that separates the bitter genius from the powerful operator. It is the ability to detach your ego from the immediate outcome. It requires you to be okay with looking weak in the short term. It requires you to be okay with people thinking you are wrong for a while. Machiavelli was ruthless about this. He didn't care about honor. He didn't care about glory. He cared about fine, the end, the outcome. In the actions of all men, and especially of princes, one judges by the result. Nobody cares if you won the debate if you lost the contract. Nobody cares if you were technically right, if your wife leaves you. But this is physically painful for people with high intelligence. When you hear an error, it hurts. It feels like a dissonant chord in a symphony. You want to resolve it. You have to train yourself to sit on your hands. You have to train yourself to say, "You're right," to people who are dead wrong, simply because agreeing with them moves your piece to a better square. Think about the last time you argued with a police officer, or a bureaucrat, or a bouncer. Did arguing logic work? No. It made them flex their authority harder. The moment you challenge their intelligence, you challenge their power. The chess player apologizes. The chess player strokes their ego. "I'm so sorry, officer, I didn't realize. Thank you for doing such a tough job." You feed their ego, and they let you go. You lost the interaction. You submitted, but you drove away without a ticket. You won. People will call you a pushover. They will watch you apologize to a rude customer and say, "Why did you take that? You should have told them off." They don't understand that you are conserving your energy for things that matter. They are fighting street brawls. You are planning a coup. You have to decide what you want. Do you want the dopamine hit of correcting a fool? Or do you want the outcome? You cannot have both. The lion roars and scares away the prey. The fox plays dead, waits for the prey to get close, and then eats. This trait is the ultimate test of your maturity. It is the transition from "look how smart I am" to "look what I accomplished." It is the understanding that your intelligence is not a flag to be waved. It is a dagger to be kept hidden until the fatal moment. Stop trying to prove you are the smartest person in the room. Let them think they are smarter. Let them underestimate you. There is no greater advantage in warfare than to be underestimated. While they are patting themselves on the back for beating you in the conversation, you are quietly removing the floorboards from under their chair. So, you have the traits. You have the penetrating insight. You have the strategic silence. You have the skepticism, the detachment, the adaptability. You have confirmed that you are, indeed, smarter than most people. Congratulations. Now, answer one question. If you're so smart, why aren't you winning? If you have the vision of the fox and the mind of the chess player, why are you still working for people who aren't as sharp as you? Why are you still in relationships that drain you? Why are you watching a video about power instead of wielding it? Here is the uncomfortable truth I have been saving for the end. Right now, you are not a Machiavellian strategist. You are just a smart coward. You are using your intelligence as a shield, not a sword. You use your insight to predict why things won't work, so you don't have to try them. You use your realism to justify your pessimism, so you don't have to risk hope. You use your silence to hide, because you are terrified of being seen. You have fallen into the trap of the spectator. You are sitting in the stands of the Colosseum. You are watching the people down in the sand, the loud, messy, stupid people fighting for their lives. And from your safe seat, you criticize them. Look at his form. It's terrible. She's too aggressive. That's a mistake. I would have done that differently. You feel superior because you see their mistakes. But guess what? They are in the arena. You are in the cheap seats. They are getting bloody, dirty, and exhausted. But they are also getting the glory. They are getting the gold. They are getting the life. You are getting nothing but the smug satisfaction of being right in your own head. This is the shadow side of high IQ, paralysis by analysis. You can see 10 different ways a plan could fail. The stupid person sees only one way it could succeed. So they move. You freeze. And in the real world, a bad plan executed violently is better than a perfect plan executed never. Machiavelli didn't write The Prince for philosophers. He didn't write it for people who want to sit in a library and debate ethics. He wrote it for men of action. He wrote, "It is better to be impetuous than cautious, for fortune is a woman, and if you wish to keep her under it is necessary to beat and ill-use her." He is telling you that the world does not reward your thoughts. It rewards your impact. Intelligence without action is just anxiety with a vocabulary. Look at your life right now. You have all this potential. You have this high-revving engine of a brain. But you have the parking brake pulled all the way up. You are waiting. What are you waiting for? Are you waiting to be discovered? Are you waiting for someone to knock on your door and say, "Hey, we noticed you're secretly a genius. Here's $1 million. It's never going to happen. The world is noisy. The world is blind. The world ignores the quiet genius in the corner. The world only respects force. Not physical force, but the force of will. The force of execution. You are in danger of becoming the saddest archetype in human existence. The bitter observer. You know this guy? You've seen him at the bar or in the comments section. He's 50 years old. He's brilliant. He knows history, politics, economics. He can deconstruct the entire geopolitical landscape in 5 minutes. But he's broke. He's alone. And he hates everyone. He hates the successful people because he thinks they are frauds. They're not smart, he says. They just got lucky. They just knew the right people. He comforts himself with his superiority while he rots in his obscurity. That is your future. That is the ghost of Christmas future standing at the foot of your bed. Unless you break the mirror. Unless you stop admiring your own complexity and start using it. You have to realize that knowing the truth is useless if you don't act on the truth. Knowing a trap is there doesn't matter if you don't build a bridge over it. Knowing someone is a narcissist doesn't help if you don't cut them out. Your intelligence is currently a burden because you are hoarding it. You are keeping it inside your skull where it can only hurt you. You need to externalize it. You need to stop thinking about the game and start playing the game. Yes, it's scary. Yes, You might look stupid. Yes, you might fail. But the alternative is to spend the rest of your life being the smartest person in the room who never did a single meaningful thing. You have the traits. You have the tools. But a hammer sitting on a table cannot build a house. A hammer needs a hand. You have to decide, are you going to be the hand, or are you just going to stare at the tool? This is the end of the line. You have spent the last 30 minutes nodding your head. You have felt the rush of recognition. You have felt the validation of seeing your internal world described with perfect accuracy. You feel understood. But feeling understood changes nothing. You are standing at a binary crossroads, and the choice you make right now will determine whether your intelligence is a gift or a terminal illness. Option A is the path of least resistance. You click off this video. You go back to your job. You go back to your relationships. You continue to be the smart one. You continue to see the lies and say nothing. You continue to swallow your anger when lesser men rule over you. You continue to comfort yourself with the secret knowledge that you are superior, even as the world treats you like a subordinate. This path is comfortable. It is safe. It requires no risk. But let's be honest about where it ends. It ends in a hospital bed, looking back at a life spent in the waiting room. It ends with the agonizing realization that you were a Ferrari that never left the garage. You stayed pristine, you stayed shiny, and you rusted out from the inside. You will be the smartest corpse in the cemetery. Option B is the path of the prince. It is the decision to stop being a passive vessel for your traits and start being their commander. It is the decision to take the 7 traits we discussed and weaponize them. Your penetrating insight is no longer just for observation. It is for targeting. You identify the decision makers, and you figure out what they need. Your strategic silence is no longer for hiding. It is for leverage. You use the void to make people bid against themselves. Your radical realism is no longer for complaining. It is for navigation. You see the terrain, and you chart the ruthless path through it. Your emotional detachment is no longer a wall. It is a fortress from which you launch your campaigns. Your chameleon nature is no longer a defense. It is an infiltration tactic. Your calculated action is no longer about survival. It is about conquest. This path is terrifying. It requires you to step into the light. It requires you to be judged. It requires you to fail. But it is the only path that leads to respect. Machiavelli wrote, "There is no avoiding war. It can only be postponed to the advantage of others." You have been postponing the war. You have been hoping that if you are smart enough, nice enough, and quiet enough, the conflict will pass you by. It won't. Life is conflict. Every interaction is a negotiation of power. Every relationship is a dynamic of leverage. By refusing to play, you have already lost. So here is your directive. The next time you walk into a room, do not ask, "How do I fit in?" Ask, "What is the objective here, and how do I achieve it?" The next time you feel the urge to correct someone, stop. Ask, "Does this advance my position?" If the answer is no, let them be wrong. The next time you see a trap, do not just walk around it. Ask, "How can I use this trap to catch someone else?" You must kill the good student inside you. The good student wants an A on the test. The good student wants the teacher to pat him on the head. The real world has no teachers. It only has competitors. Stop waiting for permission. Stop waiting for the rules to make sense. The rules are made by the winners to keep the losers in line. You have the hardware. You have the engine. You have the fuel. But a car without a driver is just 2,000 pounds of metal waiting to be crushed. You have to get behind the wheel. You have to accept that your intelligence makes you dangerous, and that is a good thing. A harmless man is not a good man. A harmless man is just a victim in waiting. A dangerous man who keeps his sword sheathed until it is necessary? That is a king. The video is over. The simulation is ending. You can go back to sleep, or you can wake up and start playing the game. The board is set. The pieces are moving. Your move.